Hello, welcome to the program. I'm Gigi Kopelak. My guest today is Barbara Korman. In 2009, the Neuberger Museum at SUNY Purchase had an exhibition called Great Women Artists, and it showed work from their permanent collection. One of the artists, the Great Women Artists, in that collection is Barbara Korman. I'm very happy to have her here with us today. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to show the two images from that show, the pieces that are part of the collection. But even though they're early work, I know you said that they were earlier work, that wasn't your earliest work. Tell us a little bit about your earliest work.
Well, my mother always used to say that I had a toolbox in one hand and a Madame Alexander doll in the other.
Good taste.
Right, and I was making things, sawing wood, and making things when I was 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, and so you kept on going because I know you went to Alfred University, right? And you studied sculpture.
I studied ceramic design and graphic design.
Okay.
And basically, very shortly after working with functional forms, I found I was much more interested in form rather than function, and started doing things that were virtual sculptures, even if they might be partially functional.
So instead of teacups and teapots and things like that, you were making fine art that people wouldn't use in their homes. Is that what you mean? That's what you say, functional?
Well, not exactly. I mean, I was in fact making functional forms, things that could be used. And that has been a question for a long time. Does a person making functional work, is he still considered a fine artist?
It is a question. Is it because there's that line that's drawn between craft, which usually considered function, and right. But yet you go to the Museum of Modern Art and you see functional items as fine art.
Right.
So which would you? I thought you said that you stopped doing functional.
I stopped doing it, but they certainly were works that could function with weeds in them, or they weren't teacups, although I did make many of those things because I had to.
You mean as an assignment in school?
Yeah.
Okay.
But in reality, the form and the decoration of the form was really what held the most interest for me.
Okay.
So it was, in a sense, sculpture.
Right. Yeah, I got it. And you've also said that you were particularly interested in the tension in the sculpture.
Always. Tension has always been something that I attempt to create by juxtaposing different kinds of elements with each other and making a unified statement at the same time.
Right. So after you graduated from Alfred, did you go straight into working with fine art, or like wasn't your father that said make a living or something? Or
yes, he said that he would pay for my college education only if I could show him how I would make a living.
Right. Okay.
Which I thought was totally lacking in understanding and appreciation of the finer things. However, I'm very grateful that he steered me in that direction. But actually, I eventually went into teaching.
Okay.
Okay, and I think for them, it seemed to signal one of the first major signs of normalcy.
What a shame. But so let's talk about some of your early pieces, because you were still working.
Oh yes, always working. I always maintained the studio while I was teaching, and I exhibited and sold work and also taught.
Okay. So one of your first pieces we have here is Mind Garden. Is this the kind of thing that you were doing early on? Is that?
Yeah, actually, the pieces that were chosen for the Neuberger collection are actually earlier works.
Okay.
And
earlier than Mind Garden, which we're going to see. Right.
Yeah. And those were pieces where I was attempting to set up attention by juxtaposing different kinds of elements in small boxes, because my studio was actually my bedroom.
Okay.
And And then I sort of got tired of making the forms that were fitting into the boxes.
Well, were the boxes already made?
In in the two that the museum has, one of them was in fact a cigar box that I cut into and wrapped with a billboard. And the other was a remnant from a bowl turning factory.
Okay.
And, but then I decided I wanted to work with materials that I did not necessarily create.
Okay.
And so I went into what I called was my psychological period. And I started finding things in stores like plastic babies and rubber snakes and plastic flowers and leaves and stuff like that, and putting them together in boxes that were covered with fur and things like that.
Okay. It's interesting you chose babies and snakes. I just thought that was, that's, I don't know.
Well, it's suggestive, right?
Yeah. No. So that's what you were doing, juxtaposing, again, the tension of those elements.
Yeah, and the different materials, furry surfaces with plastic surfaces.
Okay.
And that sort of led me into pieces with electrical lighting patterns. And
do we have one of those to show?
Yes, we do, in profiles.
Oh, okay.
That is a piece where I actually started. I went back to making things and I cast the various body parts from friends and willing participants. And that piece, Profiles, was actually exhibited in a show at the Hudson River Museum.
Okay.
And it is a casting of a friend of mine that I then vacuum formed in different opaque and semi-transparent plastics.
Oh, you're using words that I'm not sure I know. What is a vacuum form?
Well, it's kind of like, it's almost like shrink wrapping. When you buy something that's in plastic and you have all that trouble getting it off the thing, that has been vacuum formed to fit and embrace the form.
Okay.
So in this particular case, the molds were made from a casting of a person's head. With
what? With
plaster Paris,
okay.
right?
Okay.
And then I made molds out of those with that, and then to vacuum form it, I created a box with heated lights, the kind of lights that they use to keep food warm, but many of them. And then you heat a sheet of plastic by turning on those lights, and with a vacuum, you suck that molten plastic over the cast. Okay. And it picks up the entire form.
Wow. Are you still working in your bedroom doing this?
No. Okay. Well, in a way I am, because I have a master suite, and I tend to do most of my work there. But I did have a separate studio at one point, and it seemed like I was working on the floor of my living room.
Okay.
So I decided, I better just make a situation where I can go from my bedroom or living room into the studio.
Okay.
So if I come home at 11 o'clock at night and I think something has to be painted orange, I could do it.
Okay. So after you did, which sounds so complicated, these profiles, did you stay with that for a long time, or?
I did, because I was also working with other elements. In addition to the castings, I sometimes got into moving parts, and this particular piece has flashing light patterns that are initiated by heating elements in the bulbs.
Okay.
So eventually they're flashing orange and red and so forth, while there are mirrors that you will see your own profiling.
Wow. So there's that tension again.
Right,
the tension
exactly.
is there. Yeah. And these are life size. So that head is the life size.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then shrink it. And also shrink the head.
No.
Okay.
But I'm not into that yet.
But then you moved on to working with wood. Now.
Well, yeah. I moved into a large apartment, and I needed a very long piece for my living room. and realized that if I had flashing lights, nobody was going to be comfortable sitting in that living room. So I started working with only wood. And I realized that I couldn't have, lighting patterns and flashing things because nobody would be comfortable there. So I decided to work only in wood. And that was fabulous, actually, because it made my life much easier. And I bought some big saws and things like that and started to work. And they got very good responses because I think people were much more comfortable in the fact that they were not being provoked in the same obvious way.
Right.
And I did that for quite a few years and wound up eventually being asked to do the New Year windows for Tiffany's on 57th Street.
Right.
And those there I made 5 wood constructions.
Okay, how big are these constructions?
Well, they were about 2.5 feet by 3 feet.
Okay.
Which surprised me because Gene Moore had said.
Gene Moore.
He was the head of the displays at Tiffany's, rather renowned man. And when he approached me, he said, "I'm going to need things that are larger." I had started working small. And so I made these pieces 2.5 feet, and that was very exciting. I don't think I spent that much. I mean, I spent a tremendous amount of time on 57th Street and Fifth Avenue.
Yes,
with those
showing a lot of people what in the Tiffany. Yeah, it's very exciting. Well, are these painted pieces, or are they just?
Yes, they're constructions, painted wood constructions that were basically based on aerial views of mountain ranges.
Oh.
So they have a corrugated quality to them.
Okay. And how are they painted? Are they gold, or it's just the lighting, the way?
Well, no, they're not. They're painted with acrylics and
in color, with color.
Yes, many colors. And then he seemed to, when he set it up, he had my work on a vertical and a piece of Paloma Picasso jewelry on the horizontal. And there was this bluish lighting that worked quite well.
Yeah,
they're
beautiful.
Exciting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Thank you.
But I remember some of those pieces being white, and we have a picture of a collection in an apartment. Were those pieces?
Well, initially, the piece that I did for my living room was shades of white.
Okay.
But then there was a commission that I got for a residence in New Jersey.
Okay.
And that I did a piece that was gray and white.
Oh, okay.
Which, because the apartment had a lot of grays in it and stuff. Right.
So the idea that Paloma Picasso, it is, right? Paloma Picasso had her jewelry there. Did that inspire you to take these forms and make jewelry?
Not at all.
Okay.
However, a jeweler who worked in Tiffany's at the time approached me because I was hanging out there, and he said, "Have you ever thought about making your sculptures into brooches?" I said, "Never." He said, "I would like to do that with you." He said, "I can fabricate and you can design." He said, "Not for Tiffany's, but on our own."
Okay.
So for quite some time, we did this, and it was great because people who couldn't afford my 2 and 3 foot by 5 foot sculptures were now able to buy one and wear it.
But were they wood?
No, they were sterling silver with citrines and aquamarine.
So this one that we have, this brooch, is
yes, that's citrine, and again, you can it's possible to see that there is an interest in the juxtaposition of smooth and shiny and textured surfaces.
Okay, so this is an idea of what we said in the very beginning, right? That it's functional, but yet it's fine art. Right. Very cool, very cool. Then how did you get into bronzes? Now you've got these little things, and then you work in this big, heavy stuff. But it's not big. Your bronzes are about...
They're intimate, yeah.
Yeah, they're about 12, 14, 15 inches.
Some of them vary.
Table height. I mean, you put them on a table. You wouldn't put them on the floor.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Well, I got into that because when I did the Tiffany windows, several people started coming to me and showing me their own work. It seemed as though the Tiffany windows sort of validated me in the eyes of some people. A friend, a colleague, actually showed me some work of hers, and it was bronze casting. So I said, "Where do you do that?" And she said, "Oh, I take a night course at SUNY Purchase."
Okay.
So I did it.
All right.
And
so you cast. You didn't cast there because I know you used talent.
No, I did cast there. I cast there for quite a few years, and then my work got very complicated and really inappropriate for a classroom situation. And so I left and started working at with Argos Foundry in Bristol.
Oh, Argos.
And that really worked out well.
Yeah. So just let's talk about some of them, because let's say that you have a magma series.
Yeah.
Magma to me is volcanoes.
Well, that's really what it is. I mean, most of my work in recent years has been inspired by relationships in nature.
Okay.
And the whole idea, having traveled all over, and especially in the Southwest with the canyons and stuff, I began to get very interested in this whole issue of the earth giving birth to itself.
Okay.
And the compression and the expansion and stuff like that. And so I did a series of about 14 different sculptures that I called the Magma series.
But to me it's interesting because they're very geometric, combined with...
Right.
So the geometry is usually not found in nature. So is that the tension again? The
yes,
idea of the natural
it's the
forms
tension and the juxtaposition of the architectural aspects with the organic.
Okay.
And the smooth with the texture.
Okay, interesting. And what about the rocks that you...
Well, that was another thing.
They're not rocks.
No, they're all bronze. The pieces that we're looking at they're all mounted basically on wood bases.
Okay.
But they're all bronze. And the rock series had to do with an awareness of rocks. I always felt that rocks were forever and not vulnerable. But then I began to see trees growing up against them and things falling on them and stuff like that. And I decided to take that aspect of nature and build on it. And that's what the Rock Alliance is
Okay, what's interesting to me are the different patinas that you use. So it's all the bronzes have different colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the rock looks like a rock. That's a patina that you've put on it to make it look like that.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's really, to some extent, kind of unusual because generally speaking, bronzes are done with a single patina, either a green or a dark brown or black or something of that sort. And these were particularly challenging for the patina person and myself to work on because if you have to use certain oxides on one color and then others on another color for another color, and they have to also work together.
Right.
So it was quite a bit of challenge involved there, but it worked.
It worked.
Yeah.
It's fabulous. And then you change again, but I think it was because you had an accident.
Yeah, sometimes accidents lead to, I don't know how happy they are.
No, not happy accidents, but
yeah. They lead to new and different things.
Yeah.
And a 400-pound garage door fell on me and knocked me unconscious.
Yeah.
And I had trouble lifting heavy bronzes for a long time. And so I started working with paper mache and went back to mixed media.
Okay. And so we have this gray intensity, is that paper mache? Right.
That's paper mache and wood projections and some compounds of plaster and things for texture.
Right. And again, are these from nature? Because especially Untitled Fetish, those are branches, aren't they?
They're not branches, they're reeds.
Okay.
They're reeds. But I guess that there is a sense of, for me, there was a sense of, relationships in nature.
Well, reeds certainly, as nature. So
Right.
you're combining the geometric with the
Right.
natural forms. Again, that tension. And then, again, you change. And so this is pretty much recent now.
I would say the last 5 or 6 years, okay. And when we started, because of all the climate change and so forth, we started having these incredible storms. And both in Westchester and in the northern Bronx, numerous trees were knocked down by storms, and branches had fallen to the ground. And I'd always loved trees, and it turned out that I began to feel that something had to happen with these branches besides just mulch, Okay. So I started selecting ones that, for whatever reason, unbeknownst to me, consciously, I felt had interest.
Right.
And I brought them to the studio, and I stripped them of bark and sanded some of them and cut them and began to bolt them together and paint them. And it really, in a way, changed my thinking a lot, because prior to that, of course, I had worked with wood, but it was a means to another end. Mm-hmm. These pieces, the bundles, excuse me a minute, the bundles and the branches were all about wood. They were made with wood, and they were all about wood and about trees and stuff like that.
Okay.
So that was an interesting and I think a significant change in my thinking at that point.
Interesting. And then I think, what is your thinking with the ones that are called just branch? Where are those branches now?
Yes, they are. They're branches, and what they represented was developing my own system of branching with branches.
Okay. So you're taking them and putting them together, and
not bolting them together this time, which I called the bundles, where I bundled them together, but rather drilling holes into a branch and then adding branches to them.
Taking a bigger piece.
Right.
That sounds so difficult. So yeah.
Well, it was actually kind of meditative, but not easy, nevertheless, because some of these pieces, since I wasn't really concerned with what kind of wood they were, very often drilling into them was not as easy as I had hoped it to be.
Right. So the one thing that we have here, the branch, and then we have two pictures from a show. Both of these, the big ones, are from a show you had at Westchester Arts.
Yeah, in fact, I think all of the images that you have were in shows the bundles were in a show called Rubbish, and then the branches were in another show, I think called Spin on Green.
Okay.
And then I had suggested to Arts Westchester that they do an all sculpture show. And that is when I did that multiple floor standing installation called Looking at Woods.
So that was huge. That was maybe 8 feet deep, was it?
Well,
no?
It was variable because of the limitations of the space there. It had to fit into a given area, and so it wasn't as vast as I would have liked, but it functioned.
But you're standing next to standing next to the sculpture so that you could see the height of it. But I don't know if you get the idea.
It's about 6 feet, in some places a little higher.
Okay. And they're and again, you have this big
long
branches
with many holes and branches, hundreds of branches.
But didn't you, these are not found branches, though?
Well, the base branches are.
Okay.
But the vertical branches are actually willow branches.
Okay. Because they're very
that I bought in some, I don't know where, some discount store. First I bought a bunch of them in IKEA.
Okay.
And then I was lucky to find hundreds more in some place called National Liquidators.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
But you painted them?
Oh yeah, stripped them all down. So
Yeah.
I had stripped them down, sanded them, and then multiple layers of acrylic wash, because I wanted to give an illusion of like a scorched forest.
Okay. All right. Yeah, they're fabulous.
Thank you.
All right, and then the latest work that you have, now you're working with photography.
I've always photographed.
Okay.
I've always taken photographs, not only, in my travels, which are vast, but always of things that appealed to me in nature, and very often related to the ideas that I had. When I did the Rock Alliance series, I was photographing rocks with trees on top of them and stuff like that. And so I had a tremendous number of photographs of trees in various stages and various types of trees that seemed to be graphic and interested me. And I used them, they were up in the studio, and they sort of osmosed and ideas came out. But then I decided I was going to combine them with actual branches. And that actually, interestingly enough, people are going to think I'm accident prone, but that was the result of my having broken my kneecap, and I couldn't work and bend to make these big things in it for a while. So I started working smaller again, and I combined the photos, black and white photos. I transferred them to black and white, and branches that were all over the studio. I started bolting them and gluing them to the mounted photographs.
Right. And you also came to my backyard.
Oh yes, I have to say that. I put in orders with you, and I said, do you have any crinkly branches? Do you have any thin ones? And between you and your husband, I was set.
Right, and so one of your images is called Valhalla.
That's
I'm very,
right,
very
exactly.
proud. You just had a gallery show with that, and I was
did,
very happy to see that where they came from, at least, was put in
Well,
there. So.
I know. I asked if I could give you credit, but they didn't seem too interested in it.
Oh yeah, right. I can't believe it. 30 minutes is up already, Barbara. And
Oh wow, that went fast.
It goes
Very
so fast.
quickly.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Gigi. I really had a good time.
Yeah, me too. And thank you for watching.